We had left off at the point where Ryder was sick in the middle of the night. So when I woke up that next morning, Daddy had him, and it was about 7:30 in the morning. So I go into the living room, and the first thing Chopper asked me was, what did you do different with his food? And my reply was nothing. He had a fever in the middle of the night, so I gave him some Tylenol. Maybe that kind of messed him up a little bit. And he said, I don't know, something's just off. So I went over to Ryder and grabbed him, and he was crying and fussy and still had a fever. And I picked him up. We started to walk into our bedroom so we could lay down and take a little morning nap, because sometimes he goes back to bed easier that way. And upon getting halfway to our room, I got puked on like no other. And I've had him get sick on me before with milk not green and whatnot, but this was a lot, a whole lot. It covered my shirt, his clothes, or his pajamas, my pants, my socks. I could wring everything out. It was a lot, too much for a little baby to be giving off at 6 months old. And so Daddy took him, and I went into the bathroom and tried to take care of myself and called the doctor. They weren't open yet. So I had to wait, and this was like at 7:30 in the morning. So 9 o'clock, I called him back and said, hey, Ryder's not feeling good. I need to bring him in. This is really strange. Well, your doctor's out of town, so you're going to have to see another doctor, and is that okay with you? That's fine. I want somebody to see him. He's not feeling good. So we went in at 10:30, and we got there. Had no problem getting right in. They ran a couple little tests, looked at his throat, and said, well, he's got some kind of bug, and that he had a cough. His throat looked irritated, and he had coughed a couple times when we were there, which now looking back, we know wasn't a cough from a cold. It was another symptom of ALCAPA. So, make a long story short, we came home, got prescriptions. I proceeded to give him his prescriptions that the doctor insisted I give him right away. Nope, he threw up again. Wasn't working. I felt horrible that I'm having to give him this medicine, and he didn't even like Tylenol. And I'm not real big about taking medicine myself, so I felt horrible that I was having to give that to him. Then a couple hours go by, Chopper runs an errand. Ryder's still not feeling good. We're trying to get him to take a nap. And he did end up ultimately taking a nap. And when he got up from his nap, I went to change his diaper. He was hotter than heck. And I found blood in his stool. I freaked out. And the first thing I did was call his doctor again. And I said, I'm bringing him back right now, or I'm taking him to the emergency room. Something's not right. They said, yeah, bring him right in. So I brought him in, and they proceeded to do some blood work on him. Well, the blood work that came back that they looked at, he said was way out of whack. And with his symptoms, with his symptoms, that he needed to be checked into the hospital just to make sure he was okay, to monitor him, make sure he didn't get dehydrated, start an IV so they could get meds in if something was going on. I freaked out. I was not happy about taking him to the hospital, but I wanted him to be okay. So we came home, gathered our stuff. Chopper and I took him to the hospital, and they proceeded to start running his tests. And hours go by, and hours go by, and hours go by. And they had a really hard time starting an IV. And by, I don't know how many IVs it was. I think it was 7 that night. And they finally ended up getting one on the top of his foot. We had a hard time with that. We both had to leave the room. Neither one of us could take it. He took a turn, I took a turn. He took a turn, I took a turn. And we both were crushed and was just irked that they couldn't get the IV. And that's a very hard thing to watch them go through, because there's nothing. And they were poking, and oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. I don't even want to think about that one. They went ahead and said, okay, once we do that, we're going to do a chest x-ray on him. And you probably won't have any of the results until tomorrow. Okay, so we're staying. We tried giving more formula. He threw up throughout the night. It was a pretty rough night. Next morning, Chopper came back up to the hospital. I stayed with him. I wasn't leaving that kid alone. And there was really no need on both of us sitting up there. So next morning came, and that same doctor that saw us in the doctor's office came in and said, yeah, I'm going to let this infectious disease guy come in and talk to you. I looked at his x-ray and it's a little blurry. We think you may have pneumonia, so we're going to start you on an antibiotic. And it looked a little blurry, so something with his heart, and I think it's just because he moved. He'll be fine. Here comes the virus guy. What? He went so fast that we were like, with his heart, what? And he goes, it's just, basically he just brushed over it and said, there's nothing wrong. It's just because he moved, and we'll do another one just to make sure. Fastest conversation about a possibility that we even considered. I mean, it just kind of freaked us out for a second. The virus guy came in and he's like, yep, more than likely this is a virus and not pneumonia. But just to make sure, we're going to do a stool sample, and that'll take, I think he said 7 to 10 days. This is the one I'm kind of not for sure on. But it would take a little while to find out. It could be E. coli, it could be all this other stuff, but we're going to start breathing treatments throughout the night tonight. And it was either every 2 or 4 hours. He ultimately ended up having 5 of them, which now, knowing that wasn't very good for him, it could have probably caused another heart attack if we'd have known. But not knowing at the time, didn't know. That evening comes around and Ryder managed to keep down a whole jar of peas, which he had never done before. Luckily, he kept it down, but he wasn't keeping much milk down. He was doing more Pedialyte and whatnot, but a little bit of milk. And at home, he was lucky to get 1/4 of a jar, a couple bites, and in the last few weeks, a couple bites was all I could get down him at any one time, due to him having to take medicine, and we had to give it to him in food. So this is why we were doing food a little bit earlier than I wanted to. I really wanted to wait till he was 6 months. Now he was 6 months and I was ready to start, and he wasn't having any of it. And I thought everything was just backfiring on me. To see him eat that whole jar of peas was amazing. It felt good. It made me feel like, okay, he's going to get some stuff. He was getting some color back, and now everybody was just saying it was a virus and it would have to run its course. But we had the antibiotic in him just in case, and he didn't have diarrhea no more, and he was eating, so it was all looking positive, and we could probably go home tomorrow. So 4th of July, we were trying to go home, but we had to have an x-ray done that next morning. X-ray was supposed to be there at 6:30. Never showed up. 7:30, nothing. 8:30, nothing. So now 10:30 rolls around, and another pediatrician from our doctor's office shows up. Never met this one before. And she says, so I can't let you go until I see the x-ray. Okay, when are we going to get the x-ray? Well, I'm going to reschedule it, and then I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so within probably 45 minutes to an hour, x-ray comes up and takes us down to x-ray. Does an x-ray, and I was like, how much longer is this going to take, or do you have any idea? And the radiologist said, I'll have the results within 30 minutes so your doctor can look at them. Great. We go back to the room, and they told us to go ahead and pack up and see what was going on, just to be safe, so we had everything ready if we could leave. And the phone rang, the hospital phone, and I answered it, and it was our doctor's office. And they said, okay, we have your discharge papers. And I was like, what? So what did the x-ray? What does he have? What's wrong with Ryder? And they said, well, he doesn't have pneumonia, so it's probably a virus. But we won't know for sure for a while. And if it's a virus, we won't know what kind. Okay, so he has a virus, and the antibiotic that we took isn't going to hurt anything, but he had it just in case it was a bug of some kind. And you guys can go home. And I said, so can you tell me what the thing was about his heart, the blurry picture, whatever? And she said, hold on one second, let me get her on the phone. So she gets the doctor on the phone, and she's like, I'm sorry, I've just been a little wrapped up today. And she says that she didn't know what that other doctor was talking about. There wasn't anything listed in the report that said anything about a heart or pneumonia or anything like that. So I felt pretty relieved with that answer, and we checked out of the hospital. Chopper came and picked us up, and we immediately went home. It was the 4th of July, and decided to just hang out and relax for the day, have nothing special planned, let Ryder get back into his routine, and he wasn't feeling 1,000% yet. So we spent a lot of time at home on the week that she was here, 5 days a week, something like that, and we took him to the park a couple times, but we spent a lot of like quality time at home, and he was off the whole time she was here. He's normally a real smiley and happy, and he just wasn't really super smiley. There's one video where he does a little dancing with her, but that wasn't his normal dancing. His normal, I'm excited, happy, arms and legs flailing. He just wasn't doing that. He was doing it, but not the same. So I was a little concerned, but I knew we had a follow-up appointment on Monday, so July 7th, and we were supposed to go back to that same pediatrician who we saw who checked us into the hospital, and he would follow up with any other information just to make sure Ryder was doing okay and to see where we were at progression-wise of getting better. So we had an appointment that afternoon, and Chopper's aunt went with me, and when we walked into the office, we were in a different room than we had ever been in before, and I was absolutely embarrassed. It was the most embarrassing. It made me feel like a lack of doing my job as a mom. That room that we were in was disgusting, and I can't even say that without making a snarly, nasty face. It was horrible. And I knew, I was a little sensitive anyways, because 2 days prior to Ryder getting sick on the 2nd of July, so the end of June, 2 days before this all started, Ryder had his 6-month shots. So he had to have gotten this virus that I thought he had from the doctor's office. And even though it was a different pediatrician in the same association, I'd never been in this doctor's wing or rooms or any of that before, and upon walking into the room, we were grossed out. I felt horrible, and I was embarrassed to let Aunt Shirley see this, that I'd picked these doctors. I mean, I interviewed doctors to find the right pediatrician that I thought was going to take care of our child, and here I am bringing him into a room that's disgusting. It was a hippo table, and there was soilness coming off the hippo's face, and the table was gross, and yeah, there was paper across it, but it was awful. So I picked up a baby wipe, and I was started to wipe the table, and at 4 later, I'm still wiping, and Shirley's like, do the wall too. So we're trying to like cleanse this room before I even put Ryder down to take his clothes off, which I didn't want to do at this point. And the nurse walks in, and she's like, ma'am, you're going to have to put him on the table. And I was like, there is no way I'm putting my child on this table until this table is cleaned. We clean them daily. When? And I held up the baby wipe, and she snarled, walked out of the room, and didn't come back. Didn't come back. I wish I would have kept those wipes to have some visual aid for you guys. It was nasty. And a few minutes later, the doctor walks in, and he's hacking. So now, on top of my baby having a possible virus and possibly getting it from this doctor's office, the doctor walks in, and he's got a cold. And I'm like, are you sick? And he's like, and stands in the entryway now. He won't even come into the room. So he backed himself out, and he's standing there with a piece of paper, and he says, how is Ryder? And I said, I don't think he's 1,000% better yet, but he's seeming to act slowly a little bit better. He's keeping food down. He doesn't have diarrhea anymore. He's just not spunky yet. And he said, well, it may take a while. The virus has to work its way out of his system, And then he comes in, puts some sanitizer on his hands, and walks over and looks in his eyes and his ears and his throat, and walks back into the entryway again because he knows I'm pissed. I was livid. The room, the doctor, the coughing, the colds, the viruses, whatever's going on, I was pissed. And he says, oh, before you leave, I need to let you know, go ahead and I made an appointment for you for a follow-up appointment with a cardiologist. And I just was like, what? I mean, my head spun when I looked at him. And he's like, yeah, it's just a follow-up. He goes, I'm pretty sure that everything was just, there was a blur on his x-ray. And he's the person that can point it out with his lungs and all this other stuff. We just want to do a follow-up. I still think it's just because he moved, but just a follow-up just in case. Okay. I went out of this office now. I took the piece of paper and we marched out of there and had a very deep discussion in the car for a few minutes about how embarrassed I was, and I was disgusted by the whole thing. Well, in this process, I decided that's enough. I want to talk to the doctor that checked us out of the hospital. So I call and say, hey, I would like to talk to such and such. Can you have her call me? I don't want anybody else knowing I called. I want to talk to her as soon as possible. An hour and a half goes by and she calls and I said, okay, first of all, I need to back up first. I forgot a very vital, important step. When I left the doctor's office to verify everything for the cardiologist, I had to go by and pick up Ryder's x-ray and a report from the radiologist.
We just couldn't wait.
Can you hit pause
no,
for a second?
We can't hit pause for a second.
Look at you! You're so cute! Come here, my little Mohican.
We can't wait.
We live in the South, and I think he's a little bundled up. What do you think? Well, do you guys want to stay in here? Come in here and sit with me for a minute while I'm talking about this part?
Sure.
Come in.
Hold on a second.
Hurry up.
I need my lifeline.
So we're going to let the family join in for this part. And hopefully you will get a little bit more information here soon. So we got the whole family for this part. Are you in the picture, you think?
Oh, I know. I'm in the picture.
Okay. Daddy. So now I'm at the part where I said I had to go back and pick up the report from the radiologist and his x-ray, a copy of his x-ray on the disc. And I did that, and when I did, I even got more pissed because now I see in the report, in black and white, from the radiologist that says, did it say Ryder has? It just says possible cardiomegaly, enlarged heart. I had to Google it. And cloudiness in the lungs, has pneumonia. So now I'm very,
Not pneumonia. It was
pneumonia.
Virus.
No, I already did the virus. They said in the report it pneumonia.
Yep.
So now I'm pissed off because I had talked to this lady that was the doctor that checked us out, and she said he did not have pneumonia, and she didn't know what the previous doctor was talking about when said something about the heart because she didn't see anything in the reports. So if she actually read the report, God dang it. If she had actually read the report, she wouldn't have said these things to me. So I wanted to talk to her. So cut back to her calling me an hour and a half later. I'm in the car and I'm wanting answers. So she gets on the phone and I said the two facts, what the radiologist said, cardiomegaly, pneumonia, and needed to see a cardiologist ASAP.